Thank you for waking them up. Everybody seems to be a little bit more alive now. I also do the teacher voice. I'm not a teacher, but both my parents are, so I must have inherited some of it. I'm from chemistry, pharmaceutical chemistry, and we teach the pharmacists to do a bit of chemistry. And as part of a bachelor's degree of pharmacy, we had to design a new curriculum. Why is this not thing? I can do that. So we had to design an honours course elective. And this elective, 15 credits, it carries across the year, but it is combined with a course on drug design. So they actually have to physically go into the laboratories and actually do a research project as part of this honours. So in total, it is a 30-credit course. And when we were designing this course, because it was an honours level course and it's a final year, and next year these students will be going out into pharmacies and actually as interns but still interacting with patients. There's a lot of skills we want them to have apart from the drug design. So we want them to be communicators, and we want them to be a lot of things. But very, very important for me is this critical thinker and knowledgeable informed, because medicine changes all the time. And if you don't have a person that is a lifelong learner, that is a critical thinker, you will have a pharmacist that stagnates. And that is a problem because medicine progresses. So what we decided to do is the best way of actually doing this would not be a standard didactic teaching, because then you have bum in chair, student listening, they're not really interacting. They're not interacting with what is out there, because that's what they will need to do when they get out there. So what we did is we decided to try and facilitate the engagement of the drug design, because that was the topic of our elective, advanced drug design. So we wanted to facilitate engagement with this process using a flipped classroom approach. And this is a little bit new. It was extremely new to me, new in the school as well. So we would expect these students to engage with this material even before they got to the lecture, so they would have to prepare. The course material was not a textbook or anything, but it was articles from peer-reviewed papers. So they could go and collect articles that interested them in the field of their research project and in drug design. So they could, in essence, choose what they would want to focus on, as long as they fit that article, or they can at least defend their opinion of why this article that they selected actually falls into the categories that we wanted them. Then we would have the weekly contact sessions, and the 3 lecturers were involved, and we would sit down and we would have class discussions with them. And we really struggled to keep our mouths shut because we're all very opinionated, so we've got opinions on everything, but we had to keep quiet to get the students to talk. And then we would facilitate the process. So we would try not to take over, try really hard not to take over, and we would just kind of lead the discussions, going here, going there, where it was a very, very interesting process. Ultimately, we wanted the students to be able to critically evaluate information, get that article out there, read it, really think about it, look at the sources, look at everything and critically evaluate. Can I really take this information, use it, and make a decision based on it, and then, in essence, design a research project or consult a patient or whatever. And then they needed to debate this, they needed to communicate the concepts, and we wanted them to perform as individuals, but certainly as groups, because out there you either work in a research group or you work in a healthcare group of different people. So the course design, as I mentioned, there would be 3 lecturers. There would be 2 sessions. The first one is, how do I actually critically engage with information? And the second one was to apply the knowledge that they got through this critical engagement to the drug design process. The drug design process is massive. You start off with target discovery and you end with biological evaluations, and you have years and years and years of work in between. So it's too big for one course. So that would allow them to use a peer-reviewed article in their interest. So I might be interested in target discovery, somebody else might be interested in chemical synthesis. 2 completely different fields, but still part of the drug design process. So we gave them a bit of freedom to actually work with what they were interested in. And then we also worked very hard to ensure that there's a good balance between the written and the oral, and the group work and the individual work. So it pretty much worked out 50-50 in everything. So wherever the student was strong, they would be able to gain their marks in that. So this is where we want our students to be at the end of the course, where they would actually be able to design it. As you said, if you can design something, you understand it. So we wanted them to progress in the cognitive dimension, but also in the knowledge dimension. So they would eventually work follow up and end up at that level. So we designed our course accordingly. And we started off with the easier assessments, the normal cognitive multiple choice in class, go and read the article, answer the questions. And then we asked them to do an article presentation. The red ones are oral. So we asked them to do an article presentation, and then they had to critically evaluate. And then they had to peer review each other's. And then they had to write a rebuttal on what was actually reviewed. So every time we're stepping it up a little bit so that they can get. And then written exam was, they were given an article, 48 hours in advance. We give them an article that interested me or interested one of my lecturers. They wouldn't know what. We would give them the article and we would say, okay, fine, so go and do your research. Go and do whatever. You can talk to anybody, you can read anything, you can do whatever. You can't talk to us, but you can talk to anybody. And then we put them in a room, open book test, and they have to answer questions, open-ended questions. What is your opinion on this for 10 marks? And you would see what they would be coming up with. So they would really have to be able to engage with these things before and during the test exam. And then, very interestingly, we had a case study where they had to work as a group. It was quite a large percentage of the marks. And in this case study, they would actually have to evaluate a drug that was recently registered. So they would take an FDA-registered product and they would go and trace the history back all the way to where was the target discovered, how did they work, how did they find the drug, how did they change it around, how did they test it to ultimately come to a registered drug. And that would put the drug design process in perspective. So they would actually then apply everything that they've learned throughout the process. And then finally we had the everybody was very stressed about this oral exam, where they would sit with the 3 lecturers in front with the whole panel, and then they would come individually and they would have to talk to us about the drug design process. We tried to keep it very informal, so that they would at least be a little bit more relaxed. Sorry, I'm flowing through this very quickly. So our challenges, lecture workload, all 3 of us being involved, it was massive. The learning curve, it was new. We've never done this before, we've never presented this type of course, so what can we do? How do we create an environment that will enable them to learn, and how can we evaluate them? And then from a student perspective, what can I expect? How do I learn without being taught? Because we're not teaching them, and how will I be evaluated? So we were worried about the same things, just from different perspectives. So we did a mid-year survey, and I'm the course coordinator, so I love using Google Forms. It just gives you pretty pictures after you've done the evaluation, and it analyzes everything for you. So this one was the mid-term evaluation, where we said, I enjoyed the way this course presented in facilitated learning rather than didactic lecture. And you could see that most of the students actually liked the way that it was presented. There were 1 or 2 that obviously hated it. And the course challenged me to participate actively in my learning, and gave them a little description of that means. And they all said, I have to participate. I can't just sit on bum and listen. And then this was also some mid-year perspectives of the students. Some of them were very unsure, and then they got with the program a little bit later on. What they was used to completely rocked their boat. Very different. You can see this one was worried in the beginning but had no regrets. This one says, we're just making things up as they go along while we, the students, bear the consequences. So when you had that thing up of building the plane while you're flying, the student obviously thought they weren't doing a great job of building this plane, which is fair enough. I mean, that's their perspective. These things you need to think about, because all opinions are valid, and it comes from somewhere. So you need to consider. And we'd actually changed a few things. This is mid-year survey where they said they really don't think that they're going to know what to write in the end exam. And you could see by the follow-up survey, we did at least see a little bit of progress towards, yes, I should be able to actually pass this final exam. And then we just looked at the learning attributes, where we actually asked them what do they think developed as part of this course. And very surprisingly, skilled communicators, because I thought that that would be one of the things that would really come up. Post-elective survey. Oh, okay. This one was actually very interesting because this was a post-elective and we actually posted it to the students the year after, so they'd already started working. And we kind of linked it to the graduation ceremony and said, please complete this before you come to graduation so they would have an incentive. And they actually said that the elective allowed them to develop skills that now contribute to the way they're actually working in the field. Some things that they enjoyed, I don't have time to go through all of them, but it's very, very interesting to read. The things that they would change. They wanted fixed lectures. They wanted research in elective integration, which we definitely did and will do even more. More direction in terms of assessment, so we actually gave them more inclusive rubrics. We put more information in the rubrics that we gave them. So I hope we address this. A little bit more didactic material. I want the lecturers to teach the class. Lecturers should be more involved. Fixed lectures. So you can see that the students are really struggling with this process because it is not something that they've ever really done, is to learn themselves. They like to be taught. They like to have bum on chair. This is cyclohexane coming from chemistry, and you get different confirmations. Chair confirmation is your lowest energy. That's where everybody wants to be. But when we rock the boat, that's when we get to the cyclohexane mode confirmation. And this is actually a higher energy. But being at a higher energy level also has so much more potential to do things. You just have to direct it in the right direction. So what did we actually learn? And this is a learning process. We change it every year. We're still changing. New method. Lots of additional work. The students need to adapt. The lecturers need to adapt, but they will adapt eventually. Every group is different. Our first year group was completely, before they select, you need to make it very clear what you are doing. Make sure that you include all the students in discussions because they duck. Students love having their own, choosing their own article, and if you can have a relaxed atmosphere, that just completely makes it a little better. And then the surveys, oh my word, that really gave us a lot of information. And if you really act on the surveys, that makes a massive difference. So way forward, we're going to act on most of the things that we saw in the surveys. I'm still deciding if we are going to actually include didactic literacy. The students really want it. I really don't want it. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe one. Okay. And mentors. It's a new process. So that's all from me. And I'm also going to leave you with a quote. Thank you. Any questions for Erika or comments? You've got two hands there. Yes.
So it seems that this is completely face-to-face.
Yes.
So what happens to the students who don't attend or refuse to attend or can't attend lectures?
It is very difficult because the lecture times where we really discuss the things and we engage. But technically, they wouldn't have to attend the lectures because they will still be reading their articles, they can still be writing their opinion pieces, they can still be, but they wouldn't be able to get the type of interaction that I would think really makes up the more important part of those. So we monitor their attendance quite well. We make sure that they are there. We set parameters for how much they need to attend and what they can skip. And we have one session a week and it's very structured. So we've had one or two students not coming to one or two sessions, but it's really been good attendance. I hope it's because they value the sessions. Yes. Yes.
I'm sorry, I was just wondering if part of the lecture that you can give to students, considering that they've never encountered this kind of learning before, is to actually explain to them what, or if you perhaps do this, to explain to them why there is no lectures as where the learning is going to happen. And I find for some of our students, they're very uncomfortable in that space. But once you sort of orientate them into the way that it's going to happen and how you want them to learn and how the activities are structured to help them to learn, and then they will be taking responsibility forward. But they're still not as comfortable, but they kind of understand the concept.
Yes, no, definitely, I agree with you. We made that mistake in the first year, because we actually just kind of threw them in there, and then halfway when we did the midterm survey, they actually said to us, but what are we supposed to, how are you going to evaluate us? What are we learning? We don't know. We have no idea. And then this year, we actually had a much more comprehensive session in the beginning, where we actually explained to them what is the methodology and how we're going to try and do it and what we expect them to learn throughout the process, and that helped. It really did help. So thank you.